Keeping cash is not the mistake. Keeping cash long after it stopped making you safer might be. This is not really about finding the perfect cash number. It is about knowing what your money is supposed to protect and when extra caution stops helping. A lot of people get stuck here for a simple reason. They're trying to follow two pieces of advice that do not fit together very neatly in real life. One side says invest early because time in the market matters and cash sitting idle has a cost. The other side says build a solid emergency fund first, be responsible, and make sure your life can take a hit. Look, both ideas are reasonable, and depending on your situation, both can be right. That is why so many people end up stuck in the middle. They save, they wait, they keep stacking cash, and every month the same quiet question comes back. Am I being disciplined right now, or am I just delaying the next step because staying in cash feels cleaner? That is the real tension here. Not some ideological debate about cash versus investing, and not a personality test about whether you are cautious or bold. It is a practical decision about how much cash your life actually needs before the rest should start working. So the easiest way to get this wrong is to treat cash like a goal instead of a tool. Cash has a job. It is there to protect your financial life from short-term instability. That means rent, food, utilities, minimum debt payments, a car repair, a medical bill, a gap between jobs, or just a rough stretch when income comes in slower than usual. That is what makes cash valuable. It gives you room to absorb problems without immediately reaching for expensive debt, selling investments at the wrong time, or letting one bad month turn into a bigger mess. But once cash is doing that job well enough, more cash starts doing less for you. That is the part many people miss. They assume more cash always means more safety, when sometimes it just means the same fear has a larger balance behind it. So the useful question is not, what is the perfect cash number? It is more practical than that. What risks am I actually trying to cover, and how much money does that really take? Once you start there, the whole topic gets clearer. The answer is not universal, but it is also not mysterious. A simple way to think about this is in layers. The first layer is survival cash. This is the amount that keeps one bad month from turning your life into chaos. For some people, that may be about 1 month of bare-bones expenses. Not your normal lifestyle and not the version of your budget that still includes convenience and nice-to-haves. Just the minimum cost of keeping life stable. So if your stripped-down monthly cost is $2,800, that first target is not abstract. It is about having roughly $2,800 ready, so one rough month does not push you straight into panic mode. The second layer is buffer cash. This is where the usual 3 to 6 months idea comes from. It is not random. Life is uneven, job searches take time, and emergencies rarely show up one at a time. Even here, though, the number is not universal. With that same $2,800 monthly base, 3 months would be about $8,400. 6 months would be about $16,800. 3 months may be enough if your income is stable, your fixed costs are modest, and you would probably find new work without too much trouble. 6 months, or even more, may be reasonable if your income is volatile. Your industry is shaky, your household depends on one income, or your life has several ways to get expensive fast. The third layer is assigned cash, and this is where people often confuse themselves. Not all cash is emergency cash, and not all cash is extra cash. If you are saving for taxes, a home down payment next year, annual insurance, a planned move, tuition, or a medical expense you already know is coming, that money has a job. It should not be treated like idle cash, and it definitely should not be pushed into the market just because the balance looks large on one screen. Then you get to the fourth layer, which is true excess cash. That is the money sitting there with no clear short-term purpose after your stability needs are already covered. This is the part that deserves scrutiny, because once your essential protection is in place, holding more and more cash does not always make your life meaningfully stronger. Sometimes it just delays compounding and gives you the feeling of progress without much real movement. Listen, that does not mean you throw everything into stocks tomorrow morning. It means you stop treating every dollar in cash like it is doing important defensive work when some of it is really just parked there because moving it feels emotionally harder than leaving it alone. And the amount of cash that makes sense depends less on a universal rule and more on how fragile your financial life is. That word can sound abstract, so make it concrete. Fragility is just how easily your month gets knocked off balance. If your income is steady, your housing cost is manageable, your debt is low, and you still have room after your core bills, your finances are less fragile. If your income swings, your fixed costs are heavy, your debt payments are tight, or one surprise expense can wreck the whole month, your finances are more fragile. Imagine two people with the same $10,000 in cash. The first person has a stable salary, low rent, no dependents, no credit card debt, and strong job prospects if something goes wrong. If their essential monthly expenses are about $2,500, then $10,000 already covers roughly 4 months. For that person, continuing to pile up cash far beyond that while never investing may not be buying much more safety. It may just be delaying growth. Now take a freelancer with the same $10,000. Their income moves up and down. Some months are strong, some are thin, and work can dry up for 6 weeks without much warning. They also handle their own taxes and do not have much of a safety net. For that person, $10,000 may not be excessive at all. It may be the difference between thinking clearly during a bad quarter and scrambling into expensive debt. Same cash balance, different answer. That is why generic advice falls apart so quickly. The right number depends on what the money actually has to defend against. There's also a long-term cost to getting this wrong on the cautious side. Let's say someone has already built a reasonable buffer, but keeps an extra $10,000 in low-yield cash for 20 years because it feels safer there. If that same $10,000 had been invested and earned around 7% a year over a long stretch, it could bring you over $4,000 in 5 years. In 20 years, your total asset would grow from $10,000 to $39,000. That does not mean the market owes you that result on schedule. It does not. It just means the opportunity cost is real. Extra safety has a price once it stops solving a real problem. So what should you do with this? Start with your bare bones monthly cost. Not your current lifestyle, not your ideal lifestyle, just the minimum amount that keeps life stable. Then look at your situation honestly. How stable is your income? How hard would replacing your job be? Do other people depend on you? Are your fixed costs high? Are you carrying expensive debt? Do you have major short-term expenses coming that this money will need to cover? After that, separate your cash into buckets. Emergency cash, short-term goal cash, required bills and sinking funds. Do not mash all of it into one number and call it savings, because that hides what each dollar is supposed to do. Then ask one blunt question. If this extra cash stayed in the account for another year, what real risk would it be covering? If you have a clear answer, fine. That cash still has a job. If you do not, that may be your signal that part of it can start moving into long-term investing. And if the jump from cash to investing feels too abrupt, do not make it dramatic. Use a split. If you are saving $800 a month, maybe $400 keeps building the buffer, and $400 starts investing for a while. It does not need to be a perfect transition. It just needs to be rational. Look, the goal is not to feel perfectly safe before you invest, because that day usually never arrives. The goal is to get stable enough that cash no longer has to do every job at once. Cash is there to protect the present. Investing is there to build the future. When you force cash to carry both jobs forever, it starts falling short at one of them. So if you are wondering how much cash is enough before you invest, stop chasing a universal number. Build enough cash to protect your actual life. Then let the rest start working. If you want more videos that make money decisions feel clearer, subscribe. And maybe check out this other video if you're curious how to squeeze extra benefits from your job and make investments even easier. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the path.